Morning folks, sorry I'm running a little late. Held up a wee bit of my last wrap. So good morning folks, sorry to keep you waiting. Okay, what have we got? 54 on board, good morning. Robert, Lorraine, Barbara, Lorna, Debbie, Hazel, Jane, Johnny, Mark, Scott, getting there, Jim. Hi Jim, long time since I've seen you boy. Yeah. Hi Ian, hi Graham, Elizabeth, how's Duisburg this morning? Getting there. Morning Ted, Stuart, Alan, Helen, Fiona, John, Diane, good morning Diane. Morning Mr McGoran, that's it, it works over 100 on board, so let's get this broadcast underway. It's Indytruck Davy in the truck, coming to you today from Elgin, where it is clearing up nicely, 15 degrees. That's the weather forecast for Elgin. You want to know what weather's like where you are? Look at the bloody windy. Alright, we'll start today as we normally do with the latest COVID figures, alright. So, the COVID latest figures are 5,313 new cases on Wednesday, with 2,110 people in hospital, and that's down 8 on Tuesday. There are 23 people in the intensive care units with COVID, and that's no change from Tuesday. 28 deaths were registered with COVID with COVID as a contributing factor in the deaths from Tuesday to Wednesday. Alright, so that's the highlight figures. Okay, death rates coming down a wee bit. Hospital rates steady around about the 2,000, 2,200. And the figures in intensive care are steady about 23 to 25. Right, let's move on. Wednesday started with just one main theme in the rags. Criminal, PM and Chancellor. You know, all the rags go on Bojo and Sunak being fined for attending Bojo's birthday party on the 19th of June 2020. Got to remember, by the way, the 19th of June 2020, with the lockdown only came in March 2020, or at the end of March 2020. Or maybe the lockdown maybe a wee bit later than that. But, you know, so we were right at the height at the beginning of the pandemic. And here are these Bojos partying, alright. Now, the papers also cover Bojo and Sunak's refusal to quit, as cabinet members come out to defend the top two players in the Westminster criminal cabal. And we'll get a wee bit. What was interesting about all the ministers coming out to support Bojo and Sunak was I don't know if you've seen the TV interviews, I've watched clip after clip on YouTube, and every one of them with a smug smile on their faces have to say the rules don't fake and apply to yours, just spanners, what you going to do about it? You know, it was quite interesting to watch them. One smug git after another saying, it's storming the teacup, we need to concentrate in Ukraine, we need to concentrate in Ukraine. No, we bloody well don't. Ukraine's half a world away. There are bigger things to concentrate on right here, right now. Like an extra 1.3 million people being pushed into poverty with the cost of living crisis, 500,000 of those children. There are more important things. Ship some bombs after bloody Ukraine and give them a couple of bob and get your eyes on the bloody job here. People are starving to death. COVID's still running a savvy. Wow. Imagine using the people of, and we'll give you a more of that, but imagine using the misery and the disaster that's going on in Ukraine as a method of shielding a criminal cabal. Wow. Right, anyway, moving on. Wednesday, it's announced that inflation had reached 7% in the month of March. Now, all the broadcasters hit the streets to get public reaction. BBC Scotland hit the streets of Govan in Glasgow to find out how it's affecting people. People are now buying the cheapest foods, which is all part of the plan. I hope you know that. That's the plan. That's the running down agricultural standards. They can't get proper trade deals, so they're going to buy iffy grub from elsewhere and sell you at crappy prices. Remember, some of the stuff that's being imported from America and South America and Australia, that beef-injected hormone stuff we were all talking about and things like that. And, of course, the amount of rat shit the Americans allow into their food chain. Anyway, so, people are now buying the cheapest foods. People are sitting in the dark One guy says he was sitting in the dark and cutting back on showering. Another guy says he couldn't afford to run his car anymore because of fuel prices. What's interesting about the fuel price thing here, folks, is, and I'm going to do a more in-depth one on this, but I was sitting after I'd finished talking to my brothers last night, looking at this. Do you know, they're talking about the price of gas and oil on the international market being the problem and it being an internationally traded commodity. Well, guess what? Davy was looking at this last night. There's nobody out there forces the Westminster government or the companies that are drilling, that are licensed to drill in the North Sea and west of Shetland. There's no laws out there forcing them to sell it on the international market. One of the conditions of the licences being issued for Westminster is that they could actually have to fill our bucket first, ensure our gas, our fuel security first, our gas and oil supplies first. That could be a condition of the licence. It could also be a condition of the licence of what the cost they sell it to, is it? I keep saying this. This cost of living crisis isn't a cost of living crisis at all. It's big companies who the Tories are invested in actually ripping us off. It's profiteering, they're gouging us. As I say, when they issued licences, and apart from the fact that George Osborne doesn't stop taxing oil and gas companies, but as a condition of issuing licences, and by the way, licences can be recalled and new conditions put on them. As a condition of issuing licences, they could have told them, by the way, you'll supply the domestic market first and you'll supply at this amount, and anything over the top of that, then you can sell in the international market. So we're actually being gouged, we're being ripped off, people. Simple as that. So it's like, you know that. Anyway, so that was the reaction of people on the street. They're moving on to cheap foods and they're walking more. Maybe no using the car as much will be good for the environment. Alright, moving on Wednesday. It's announced that the Scottish Government has bought a private hospital in Ayrshire. The Carrick-Glen Clinic will become part of a network of 10 elective treatment centres across Scotland. The national treatment centres will increase capacity and see an additional 40,000 elective treatments take place each year. The national treatment centres will be funded by a 400 million cash injection with a view to reducing the pandemic backlog of 538,000 people waiting for elective surgeries. Right. Now, what are elective surgeries? Cataracts, getting your knees fixed, getting your hip replaced, that sort of thing. So there's going to be 10 dedicated centres set up across Scotland to deal with the backlog. They're hoping to get through an extra 40,000 operations a year. They've already got a centre in Fife which deals exclusively with cataracts, and it's like musical chairs. You get in one chair, you get a zip done, in the next chair, get the lens in the next chair, and out the bloody door. It's quite impressive, a production line for sorting out cataracts. Right, so these elective centres will be brilliant when they get up and running, and they will help reduce the backlog a lot quicker. But even at that, at 538,000, I don't know how many's been done a year at the moment, but throw another 40,000 elective surgeries on top of that, and maybe we'll clear that backlog in a couple of years, hopefully. Alright, let's move on. Wednesday, let's go down that road to the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers, which is in recess, but you know what I mean, the politicians down there, alright? Wednesday, and down that road, Michael Fabricant, the pound shop Boris Johnson, gets nurses and teachers back up defending Bojo. Now this Michael Fabricant, I don't know if you've ever seen this guy, he's when it comes to tans, he's a bit like Tommy Sheridan, you know, you nip down to the tanning salon and get yourself painted orange. Well, anyway, and he's got a jig on that looks a bit like Bojo's hair. You know, he just looks like a pound shop Bojo, right? Anyway, he gets the teachers and nurses backs up defending Bojo by saying that nurses and teachers at the end of their shifts were nipping into the staff rooms and getting a swally with each other before they headed home. Now, of course, the nursing council weren't having any of that pish. You know, they come out strong and heavy, and the teachers associations weren't chuffed either. For a start, the House of Commons is one of the only bloody workplaces in the UK where they've actually got booze allowed in the bloody place. You know, nurses and teachers weren't they finishing their shifts and going for a swally. In fact, a lot of nurses were going to hotels because they had to be kept away from their families in order to keep their families safe. Doctors and nurses weren't they going home. They were going to bloody hotels that had been seconded for them to get into. And here's this pound shop Johnson trying to defend the real Johnson by claiming that teachers and nurses were getting swallowed up after their shifts. What a lot of bollocks. Anyway, the Nursing Council was demanding an apology, and rightly so. The guy should get his bahookie kicked. Right, let's move on. Also down that road, Sir David Wolfson quits as Junior Justice Minister over Partygate. Now, the letter he left, his resignation letter was quite stinging. He was making it clear that as a Justice Secretary and as a barrister and a long-term QC, and whose duty it is to uphold the law, he could no longer serve in a cabinet where the law was so blatantly flaunted. So that's the first resignation. There was also a Tory MP put a letter in a no confidence in Bojo yesterday, but the rest of them don't seem to be shifting. They're still banking on Bojo being a winner at elections. We'll see how that goes in May. And there's also the possibility that Bojo could face more fines. This could get really embarrassing for the criminal cabal. But as if they care. You know, they hold on to power at all costs. Right, also down that road, asylum seeker processing to be outsourced to Rwanda and Africa. This is as sick as it gets, kids. When they get the details today, what we're going to find out is that young men coming into the UK on boats for across the channel will be battered on the planes and taken out to concentration camps in Rwanda for their applications to be processed. They will also be encouraged to remain in Africa. In other words, the UK government's going to bung them a couple of quid and say, don't come faking back. Wow. Now, that gets interesting when we get to the paper review, but we'll get to that when we get to the paper review. Okay, so the evil one, Priti Patel, is going to grab all the young men as they come off boats and file them on planes out to Africa to get shot of them, out of sight, out of mind, never to be seen again. As for processing asylum, processing their asylum requests, they'll get out there. The Rwandan government will give them a couple of nights in a hostel and then kick their bahookies out on the street and say, bugger off, here a couple of quid, that's what the UK said to you today, get lost. Alright, also down that road, Sir David Amess's murderer is jailed for a whole life sentence while with no prospect of release, and that is Henry Ali, who stabbed David Amess, the MP for Southend on Sea, wasn't it? Right, moving on, also down that road, the Guardian, I'm going to thank my young brother for this one. Where you get this one, kids? This one's a cracker. Right, down that road, the Guardian reports that the United Nations has warned the UK Home Office to stop acting like a dating agency for UK single male homeowners who have joined the house for the homes, the House of Ukrainian Refugee scheme. So get this right. Single males who own their own houses, who are applying to help Ukrainian refugees. Well, it appears the UK government is matching them up with single Ukrainian women. And the United Nations is wrapped them around the knuckles for it. Wow. Talk about putting people at risk. Vulnerable people at risk. I hope the vetting of those who have applied to take in refugees from Ukraine have been well vetted. But the mere fact that the Home Office is matching single female refugees for Ukraine with single male homeowners who have applied to take Ukrainian refugees is astonishing. The very last thing you would do is put a vulnerable female into a house with a single male. It's mere, if they've got single male homeowners want to open up their homes, then get families in there where there's mothers who can protect their children. You know what I mean? The Home Office acting like a dating agency and having to be warned by the United Nations for it. Wow. Anyway, as I say, I need to thank my young brother for flagging that one up. I could just make him out through his drunken haze last night. He's watching, that's why I said that. Morning, bro. Right, anyway, move it. Right, let's see. So, that's unbelievable, you know. Right, let's move back here to Scotland. And the the campaign for the Scottish council elections hots up. The Fib Dems launched their manifesto for the council elections. They want to devolve more power to the councils, control over council tax rates. What are they talking about? Control over council tax rates was given back to them this year by the central government, the SNP and the Greens. Alright, a new local tax to replace council tax. We've been talking about this since devolution started and council tax was devolved. I didn't see anything in their manifesto to tell us what it is they're going to replace the council tax with. Or they want a decision making on childcare and education devolved to councils. It bloody well is. The central government just sets the legal standards, and then the local authorities go about conducting their businesses. They interpret the law that's been set by central government, then they control childcare, they control education. You never heard so much bollocks for the Lib Dems as Alex Cole-Hamilton got his head up as Bahookie. Wow. And they want a Robin Hood tax on energy giants. You know, it would appear that the Lib Dem manifesto for the council elections is a little bit confused, same as the rest of them. A Robin Hood tax, in other words, a windfall tax. But the Lib Dems like it different, so they want to call it a Robin Hood tax, alright. But once again, it's a matter that is reserved to Westminster. What is up with these bloody folk? I keep making this clear to all you guys out there. There's only two parties in Scotland who might be able to mitigate a little of the cost of living crisis, and that's the SNP and Greens, because they're actually in central government. Alright. Also, Scottish Tories on the campaign trail. What was interesting about that was the Scottish Tories were on the campaign trail. No in a housing estate. No chapping doors. They were holding hands with each other and skipping through the park, avoiding the general public. Wonderful. So we didn't see any Tories like Dross or Ruthie going to chap doors and horn out their leaflets, because the citizens at the lane doors would be telling the Tories to sling their bloody hooks. So there's a photo up in the park somewhere in Edinburgh. And what was interesting about that as well was Ruthie, Baroness Ruthie Tank Commander. Remember her? Anyway, Baroness Ruthie Tank Commander tells the press that Bojo should resign because he's written to piss out the general public. And Dross, standing next to her, says, no, we have to deal with the war in Ukraine. Right? But truth be told, of course, the war in Ukraine, all we can do is send them some munitions and a couple of quid out that magic money tree that isn't getting shaken to feed the children here that are going hungry. You know. But then Baroness Ruthie Tank Commander says she understands Dross's position, but he's wrong. But once again, Westminster Tories have put Scottish Tories into a position where they shouldn't be. There is a bit of truth in that, actually. Just a wee bit of truth in that. And by the way, I don't know about you guys, when I got home last night, I gave all the Tories MPs here in Scotland bloody pelters by email. Alright, so it's really interesting. You know, if I was going out in the campaign trail with a party and I was the press, I would be wanting to take pictures of them chapping doors and talking to the general public. But once again, the BBC are at it, along with other broadcasters. They know how unpopular the Tories are here in Scotland. So let's take them round the park where they can play with each other and kid on their campaign and honing leaflets back and forth across the wee line behind Ruthie, Baroness Ruthie Tank Commander and Dross the jellyfish to each other. Very interesting stuff. You know, mental. Anyway, also back here in Scotland, right, the First Minister is asked you know, for her opinion on Bojo once again, and the position taken by the Scottish Tories. And the First Minister says the position taken by Dross is disgusting and deplorable. Imagine using the misery that's been inflicted on the people of Ukraine to shield the criminal cabal in Westminster. And for the First Minister's absolutely correct. The First Minister also announced that the last COVID restriction face coverings would end on Easter Monday, the 18th of April. But she did stress that COVID rates are still quite high, and although it's no longer a legal requirement, it was a good idea to continue to wear face coverings in enclosed public spaces and on public transport. Alright. So, that's basically a campaign trail yesterday. We're getting the Tories campaign, we're getting a Tory Council manifesto getting laid out today. They're promising to cut council tax for thousands of homes and all that. But you know the Tories, they're never going to have to deliver on it. You know, so it's a lot of bollocks. Absolute bollocks. What we can say about all three, the cuckoos and the nest, is they're conflating reserved, devolved matters with local matters. The other thing that we can take from it is that they don't expect to do well, because they're promising pie in the sky knowing that they can't deliver on it. Alright, let's move on. And let's go to Ukraine, alright? So now to Ukraine. Biden to send 800 million worth of hardware, including armoured vehicles, missile defence systems, and Switchblade or kamikaze drones, whatever the hell that is. There was no drones when Davy was serving. I get the kamikaze part, send it to hit a target and boom. What a switchblade drone is, that one's above me. I've no idea what a switchblade drone is. If anybody knows what it is, stick in the comments, I'll read it later. Alright, the Ukrainian forces also claim to have hit the Moskva, rendering it useless. Now the Moskva is Russia's flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, and apparently the Ukrainians struck it and took it out yesterday. Apparently the ship's crew had to be evacuated, and the tub's just floating out there at this point in time while the fire burns out, or while they put the fire out. Now what's happening is the Russians are claiming that there was a fire on board and it set off a magazine of munitions which caused the damage. But generally speaking, it's very difficult to set off a magazine of munitions. So, theory that the Ukrainians struck the boat with some sort of missile is probably more credible in this case. Alright, and of course, once again, Mr. Zelensky dresses the world via internet, and he pleads for more money and more munitions. Again, okay. So, that's the roundup of yesterday's news. That's the stories I picked out. The one that really blew me away was when my young brother told me last night the UN had to wrap the Home Office for matchmaking. Wow. Mental. Absolutely mental. Right. So I hope you found that part of it interesting and informative. As I say, but when it comes to the cost of living crisis and the energy crisis, there is no organisation on the planet forcing the UK to issue the licences the way it does and to sell its oil and gas onto the markets the way it is. That reminds me, I have to do a correction I meant to do at the beginning. When I was talking about Biden telling the people of Idaho that he was going to release a million barrels a month of US reserves, I actually accidentally said UK reserves, so that's that cleared up. It's US reserves that Biden's pouring into the market. Alright. Now, let's move on to this morning and what the papers have to say. Alright, the record has worse yet to come, and this is Partygate. Apparently Bojo could be issued up to another 5 fines, and it's looking like he's going to get another 3. Okay, the Scotsman has, Davison says PM has made a mockery of sacrifices in lockdown. Can't argue with Ruthie, Tank Commander here. She's right. She's taking the moral high ground. Of course, she's in the Lord, she gets to do that. You know, if she was a snivelling MP, she'd be probably backing Bojo. You know, the National has no credibility, the lowest of the low. And this is Dross using the suffering of the Ukrainians as a shield to save Bojo's bahookie. It was one of the most it was one of the most disgusting things I've seen, actually. These Tory ministers and Tory MPs all trotting out saying Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. We spoke about this yesterday. Leaders have been changed when we've actually been at war. We're not at war, we're just sending money and a few munitions. Money that apparently didn't exist for feeding hungry children. Money that didn't exist in April, beginning of this month, when 1.3 million more UK citizens were shoved into bloody poverty, 500,000 of them children. Money that didn't exist until the football Marcus Rashford shamed them into feeding bloody hungry children last summer. It's funny how that magic money tree works to create £500 billion of quantitative easing for big business during the bloody pandemic. It's funny how that magic money tree exists for absolutely everything but feeding the poor. Like allowing fast-track contracts to be awarded where 10 billion quid's worth of it has to be set in fire because it's crap and it's been stolen by the elite. Funny how that magic money tree worked then. Funny how the magic money tree worked for a £37 billion track and trace that didn't fucking work. Where the Germans, with a same-size population, only paid £1 billion for their track and trace system. Being robbed by a criminal cabal. Unbelievable. Right, where were we? The Metro has Tory Law Chief quits, and that's the story of Lord David Woolston. I'd never heard of the guy. He's a junior minister quitting because he said his job's to uphold the law. Well, the criminal cabal's job is breaking the bloody law. Right, the Tory graph goes on, or the Telegraph. Channel migrants. This is a bit that's interesting. Channel migrants to be sent to Rwanda. Let's get this clear, folks. I said I was going to mention this a bit further on. They are the migrants. They're asylum-seeking refugees, fleeing wars which were probably created by the UK and the US. Certainly funded by the banks in the West. Alright, so see, every time you see this migrant word, when it refers to people coming across that channel, they're no migrants. They're asylum-seeking refugees. The fail has Rwanda plan to smash channel gangs. It's not going to smash nothing. Nothing. What they're going to tell you today is the young men are going to be put in planes and get hoofed. It would appear they want to keep the women and the children. I wonder why. Would that look bad if they were shipping women and children out as well? Or is there some other motive for it? A bit like matching up single white male home owners with Ukrainian single female refugees. Is that what they're going to do with the folk coming across the channel? Something iffy here. I don't like it. Right, and the eye has Patel and Rwanda deal to export British asylum seekers. Now, that's it. That's the right word, export. Funny thing is, we're not exporting bugger all else at the moment. As we know, the world after, as the planet opens up for the pandemic, the average nation has a boom of 8% in their exports. The UK's exports to the rest of the world are down 14%. Whereas every other state has exports rocketing, the UK, because of Brexit and the lack of trade deals, the exports are down 14%. So as the world opens up from the pandemic, the only people making a loss out of it are us, because we are stuck in this union. Alright, but exporting Britain's asylum seekers is right. The Times has channel boat migrants. There we go, there's that lie again. Channel boat migrants will be sent to Rwanda. They are not migrants. Let's get this clear in our heads, folks. These are asylum-seeking refugees who have fled conflict and horrors that we can only imagine, and most of them were created by the West and their banking system. Right, and as I say, it's propaganda. Absolute propaganda. The Herald says inflation hits 30-year highs as cost of living crisis deepens. There's no cost of living crisis. I've just explained it to you, even in the energy markets. These are policy choices. We didn't have to leave the EU. And we didn't have to see the energy cap that was imposed by the EU disappear while the Tories and their corporate backers gouges big style. I say, I was looking at this last night. There's nothing out there says that we have to sell on the international markets. We could have issued licenses that said you will deal with the domestic market first and you'll deal with it at this price. Anything over the top of what the domestic need is, then you can sell it on the international market for whatever amount you want. Policy choices, folks. Policy choices. And the Star has Pentagon X-Files reveal. Great Scott. Boffin says time travel possible. Now, you know the Star. Every now and again they like to get their boffins out the box. Oh, that's it today, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it entertaining and informative. And right, the usual stuff. What's the usual stuff? When it comes to the question of Scottish independence, partisan politics in your pockets and keep your eyes on your prize. And when it comes to these local elections, as I said, rank the independence parties and don't rank the cuckoos in the nest. I see somebody in the comments said we should rank the cuckoos in the nest because they'd be ranked that low that they wouldn't get a transferable vote anyway. Just don't take a risk. Don't rank the cuckoos in the nest. You know, right, support the independent media, okay. I think Milligan's put more stuff out in the two Davies channel. Mr. Milligan, of course, is running that channel. Davies a wee bit busy. So there might be some interesting stuff there. Caledon Media still on the go, Indie Live still on the go, Broadcasting Scotland still on the go. So there's some good stuff out there, right? And if they've got a crowdfunder going, don't get me with a crowdfunder, but you get for a crowdfunder going, and you can help these people out to keep them going, stick a few shekels in the pot. But it's highly unlikely anybody's got a shekel left after the cost of living crisis, which has been manufactured by policy decisions. The biggest of the policy decisions was when David Cameron and them got wind of the fact that the EU were going to introduce the ATAD. For users who don't know what that is, it was the Anti-Tax Avoidance Directive. It came in April 2018, and that's why Brexit had to happen before then. Because after all, London is a tax haven itself, and it's a laundromat for all the biggest dirty money in the world. And the spider's web, which reaches out of London, takes up to, I think there's 18 British overseas territories that act as tax havens. That was to be clamped down on by the EU, and that's why we have Brexit. Okay. Right, and health messaging. Face coverings in closed public spaces and in public transport up until Monday. After that, I suggest, because of the case rates, you keep doing it. Because, as I keep saying, we don't actually have the real figures for the amount of COVID that's out there. The reason for that is they're winding down the testing. So, face coverings in closed public spaces. Clean hands and surfaces regularly, alright? When it comes to social distancing, use your napper. Right, have a look around you and see if I'm asymptomatic, how does it affect the people around about me? And testing comes to a halt on next week. You'll stop getting free lateral flow tests as of Monday. But until you run out, test and submit your results to NHS Scotland, okay? That's it for the day, folks. Time for Davy to batter out of Inverness and get his bahookie down the road. You lot have a wonderful day. Davy will be broadcasting from the house tomorrow, okay? I'll catch you all tomorrow. Have a nice day.